Now, we're going to talk to Jessica Bennett from Newsweek. She's written or co-written a piece, Are We There Yet?, about equality for women in the workplace. Jessica, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thanks so much for having me back.
All right, we appreciate you coming on. All right, so first tell us about what happened in 1970 at Newsweek, so we set the background for this.
Sure, and I liked the song that you guys played as well. In 1970, 46 women who were working at Newsweek decided to sue the company for gender discrimination. And this was a long-coming thing. They had been discussing amongst themselves that they were unhappy with the way things were. In that time, women were told outright that females do not write at this magazine. They only research. So while these women did everything that normal journalists do, they reported, they went out on assignment, they manned the phones. I shouldn't say manned. They worked the phones.
Ironic.
I know, exactly. When it came time to doing the writing, they had to hand over all of their notes to their male colleagues. So they filed a complaint with the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, and the same week that Newsweek's all-male management decided to put the women's movement on their cover, they announced their suit. And it was perfect timing because the cover that ended up coming out was called Women in Revolt, and it had a bright yellow raised fist of a woman, and none of these women who actually worked for the magazine had been allowed to work on the issue. So holding this cover story up in their hands, the 46 women of Newsweek announced that they were suing the company.
Now, that's great irony that the women were not allowed to work on the story called Women in Revolt, right? But it was actually a woman who wrote the story, but that adds another layer of irony and hypocrisy. Who was it that wrote it?
Yeah, it was a woman named Helen Dudar. She's no longer alive, but she had been the wife of one of Newsweek's male editors. So, talk about nepotism. They basically just decided to have someone's wife write it.
They're like, well,
which is great for women, but not great for the women at Newsweek.
Yeah. Obviously, the women we got working at Newsweek can't write it, but maybe my wife can. She's pretty smart.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. All right. But to be fair, Jessica, isn't it a well-known fact that women are better at research but just can't write as well?
I'm not going to go there. You can.
What I'm amused by is that they thought, like, well, research, obviously they can do research. Like, why is... Well,
I mean, I think in those days, research also involved a lot of, getting coffee and opening mail and wearing short skirts.
Well, okay, there is that. Okay, so now, fast forward to now, right? Mm-hmm. And luckily, everything is resolved and everything is solved. So, don't tell me you guys are complaining again.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly the issue. And I think that, I'm 28, and my co-writers are also in their late 20s. And from our perspective, we're a generation that really did think that everything was solved and everything was great. And we grew up not really learning about feminism or women's rights in schools because we had already achieved equality. And, in high school and college, we outperformed our male peers in every way imaginable. We got higher GPAs. We were valedictorians. We're graduating from colleges now in larger numbers than men. And then suddenly we entered the workforce, and it seemed strange because there weren't very many women at the top, and there weren't very many women in general, and there's a kind of boys' club type atmosphere that still exists. And, coming of age under this assumption that there was no more sexism, that this wasn't a problem, I think a lot of young women have trouble speaking up and even identifying what's happening as gender-related.
So give me some numbers behind that, because... I'll be 100% honest with you. I've always been a little dubious of the overall numbers. And because I know that women are in different professions. There's the mommy situation and the motherhood track that lowers salaries, etc. And part of the reason that I was so skeptical is because I think, I grew up in this society where women were obviously equal, and they got, like you said, better grades, etc. My experience has been in schools where women excelled. Right? So what are the numbers that back up the claim of continuing discrimination?
Sure. Well, I mean, as you mentioned, the numbers in the workforce are equal, and there was a big hoopla at the end of last year about how women are now entering the workforce in equal numbers, and this is happening for the first time in history. So we are entering in equal numbers, but we still rarely make it to the top. We're just 3% of Fortune 500 CEOs. We're less than a quarter of law firm partners and politicians, even though we're graduating from law school in higher numbers than men. And you raised the motherhood thing, which is really interesting because, you know, we'd heard this as well. Of course, you're going to sort of lose some footing when you leave the workforce to take care of children or to have children or whatever. And there's been a lot of talk about women opting out. But what our research found is that years away from ever thinking about even having children, young women in their first jobs out of school make 20% less than their male counterparts across all industries. And there was a new study out by Catalyst recently that looked at the top-tiered business schools in the world. And even women graduating from these top business schools, in their first jobs, they made some $5,000 less than their male counterparts.
Okay, let's pause there. Let's pause there because that's absolutely critical. So is it 20% less when you average everything out, and so you take the doctors and the nurses and the lawyers, etc., and you average it's 20% less, or is it 20% less within the lawyers, within the doctors, within the nurses, etc.?
It's an average, but in every field that this particular study looked at, they were lower across the board. So some were 40% lower, and some were, 18% lower or 6%
okay,
lower.
but that makes a difference because, as you say later in the article, what are the top 4 fields for women right now?
Right.
Where they're
the
most
top
represented?
4 fields for women right now are, this was surprising to me. I don't know if this is surprising to other people, but secretary is still number 1. Second is registered nurse, then teacher, then cashier. And what's interesting is that even in those fields, which are largely dominated by women, the women still make less than the men in those fields. So a male secretary will make more than a female secretary. He's probably not called a secretary, though.
Maybe they feel bad for the male secretary and the male nurse.
Maybe.
Okay. Anyway, but that's interesting, though. Okay. But again, Jessica, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because if women make less because they're in those 4 categories that don't pay as much, then more guys are as doctors and lawyers. Is that going to skew the 20% number?
No, because those when I'm talking about the top 4 jobs, including secretaries, et cetera, that's from a separate study that I'm referring to than the doctors and lawyers one. So even in fields like secretarial work where women far outnumber men, they still make less. I'm not sure the exact figure of how much less, but they still make less.
I'm sorry to I'm burrowing into this number, and I don't know how much you know. I know, because I think it's so important, because I think it's a definitive number. That's why I care so much about it. So do you know how many professions they looked at? So, for example, what you're telling me is maybe even in the secretarial field, women are making, let's say, 5% more as an example. I'm sorry, 5% less as an example.
Mm-hmm.
But in the field of medicine, they might be making 30% less. And as an average, it's 20% less. How many fields did they look at? Do you know?
Okay, actually, I just found this study, so I have it in front of me. All right, so they looked at humanities, they looked at sciences, they looked at mathematics and engineering, social science, psychology, business and management, education, engineering, history, and then they have a couple of other categories, and then one called other.
So these are the professionals in those fields.
Yeah, so really across the board, and these are ranging from, let's see, engineering women are making 5% less, to the health professions where they're making 25% less, to humanities where they're making almost 30% less.
Okay.
So it's a range. The 20% is an average figure, but I think that the most important point is that in every field that at least this study and others have looked at, women are still making less, period. And which is evidenced by the whole statistic we've heard a million times, which is that women still make 77 cents to the male dollar. But the difference I should point out is that this is looking at young women before they've ever had children. So you can't make the argument that they've opted out and lost footing in the workforce.
Well, that's exactly why I spent so much time on it, because the 77 cents on the dollar is partly explained by the mommy track, partly explained by the different professions, et cetera. But this is the first year out, so that eliminates the mommy situation, that factor, and it eliminates the different fields, because they considered all the professional fields. So that means, yes, the discrimination is about 20%. And honestly, that I had not seen that until I read your article. And
yeah, and I think that that's why. I mean, I know people in some sense are probably sick of hearing about sexism still exists, and it does, of course. But I think what makes our piece different is that it's looking specifically at young women in the 2000s, and everyone thinks that young women in the 2000s have it great. We're doing so well, and we're entering the workforce in equal numbers, and sexism couldn't still exist because it's 2010.
No, Jessica, we have a dramatic moment on the show. I have a conclusion. Sexism exists. Okay.
Thank you.
You swung me. There's no excuses for it. You're getting paid 20% less. They're robbing you.
Yes.
Okay.
Amen.
Okay. Now, all right. I guess then the next question is, how do we fix it? I mean, I'm not sure enough people are even aware of the problem so that we can begin to fix it.
Well, I think that talking about it is the first step, and it did take a bit of courage to call our own magazine out for sexism, and it took a bit of courage for the magazine itself to publish those accusations in its own magazine. So I think that talking about these things is really the first step, and the fact that our magazine is looking critically at itself, I hope that other industries can do that as well.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it makes me reconsider, like I said, because there's 100 excuses for other things. Like, for example, the 3% of CEOs, well, you know what? Women started entering the workforce in a real and professional way about 40 years ago.
Right.
So it's going to take some time to catch up. And I remember going to school with a lot of guys who were Asians, Indians, et cetera, and then you never saw any CEOs that were Indians or Asians. But I was like, wait 20 years and you will.
Yeah.
And we've waited 20 years, and we do see it, and we see Indian and Asian CEOs all over the place. But still 3% is a very, very low number. And I think part of the answer, honestly, is that women have to speak out more. And I know that there's this stereotype of, oh, you'll be seen as shrill, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? Screw them. I mean, because if you don't stand up, they're not. I mean, another great stat you had in there, and I think this is indicative of, is how much more men ask for salary raises than women do. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point that we need to speak up and demand things, but there's this kind of double-edged sword where we don't want to be viewed as pushy or the B word. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on your show, but as people like Hillary Clinton are. And where that leaves us is that, a recent Girl Scout study found that young women, I think aged 12 to 17, fear or don't want to take on leadership roles because they're afraid they'll be deemed bossy. And young women entering the workforce ask for raises 4 times less often than men. And so in some sense, we're not speaking up and not demanding change. But when we do, another Harvard study found that women who, when negotiating a salary, asked for more money were viewed as pushy and less nice and thus not given the jobs. So, I mean, it's almost like a lose-lose situation here, and I think that factors into this in a lot of ways, and it's very hard to sort of navigate these issues and figure out how to demand equality while also not coming off as, like you said, shrill and strident and whatever other word you want to use.
I'm going to suggest the Young Turk style. Just blow past it. If people say, oh, call you shrill or call you this or call you that, say, oh, yeah, what you going to do about it? Okay, because
well,
I'm coming
what I
for
do.
you. I'm coming for you. I want my raise, and I want equal pay, and you're going to give it to me whether you like it or you don't. That's my strategy. Okay. And,
I think it's a good one.
And Jessica, you now have us behind you, so we got your back. Okay, so we're coming for them together.
All right, excellent.
All right, Jessica Bennett from Newsweek. It's a great article. We'll put it up on our website, and we'll tweet it out too, so everybody can check out the numbers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Watch the live show at theyoungturks.com.